Hello and welcome to this playful reconstruction of the 1623 Lord Mayor's Show by Anthony Munday and Thomas Middleton. Performed on the 29th of October 1623, this was a massive civic event created by the city for its new Lord Mayor. This reconstruction was recorded live on the 400th anniversary of the show and features myself, Robert Crighton, as radio host John, doing the live commentary, with Liza Graham as Hostess Joan, Iona Campbell as Anthony Munday and Speeches in the Pageant, Alexandra Kataigida as Thomas Middleton and Speeches in the Pageant, and Professor Tracey Hill as our modern city chronologer. Enjoy. Hello and welcome to this live broadcast of the Lord Mayor's Show on Wednesday, being the 9th and 20th day of October in the year of our Lord 1623. In the studio, I'm your host John.
And on the streets of London, I'm your hostess Joan.
And together we're here to guide you through this year's ceremony. Joan, what's it like out there this morning?
Full of excitement, John. There's a lot on offer for the citizens and burghers of London this year. We have a water show by long-standing playwright of the Lord Mayor's Show, Anthony Munday, citizen and draper. And then once the Lord Mayor has returned from Westminster, a street pageant by Thomas Middleton.
Long-standing successes on the London stage and on the streets with their pageant work. This year we are welcoming the new Lord Mayor, Master Martin Lumley, to his swearing-in at Westminster, and the shows, of course, all performed at the cost and charges of the Ancient and Honourable Society of the Drapers. The procession is about to begin, isn't it, Joan?
Yes, John, I'm outside the Guildhall, where the assembled procession is waiting to make its way down towards the river. And, yes, here comes the incoming Lord Mayor, Master Martin Lumley.
And with the arrival of the incoming Lord Mayor, the procession can make its way south, down to the river, down Lawrence Lane, onto Cheapside, then along Soper Lane to Three Cranes. The members of the Drapers' Company, but also the other great livery companies are present. Now, we're going over now via the latest scrying glass technology to Professor Tracey Hill to tell us more about these figures.
The incoming Lord Mayor is Martin Lumley, who's a draper, and he succeeds Sir Peter Proby, who is a grocer. They're accompanied by members of the Great 12 livery companies and the other minor companies, all dressed in their livery gowns and other finery.
Thank you, Professor Hill. I believe the procession has made it to the river. Is that so, Joan?
Yes, John, for the water service this morning, his lordship has taken his barge for his convoy to Westminster, accompanied with the knights and aldermen, his worthy brethren of several societies, and all the other companies in their triumphal barges, with drums, fifes, trumpets, and other jovial instruments. And now his barge is approaching the water show titled The Triumphs of the Golden Fleece. And to help our listeners get a sense of the show, I'm joined by Anthony Munday, citizen, member of the Drapers' Company, and the author of this year's water pageant, Master Munday. This must be a great honor to be writing for your own company.
Well, it would have been nice to have written the land show as well, but what can you do?
Yes. So, you have dedicated this book of the show to the worshipful and worthy gentleman, Master John Gualter, Master John Foster, Master Robert Aubrey, and Master Walter Coventry, the Masters, Wardens, Bachelors, and their assistant brethren of the Ancient and Honourable Company of the Drapers.
Well, yes. I would like to take this opportunity to say to you worthy gentlemen, whose provident care and liberal cost hath run through the troublesome travail of so serious an employment, do I justly, and as no more than is your due, dedicate these poor pains of mine, which might have been more had time so favoured, but such as it is, take you the honour of my best endeavour in this day's triumphs of the Golden Fleece, and what service else you shall please to command me. Your poor loving brother, Anthony Munday.
And I'm sure they'll be very gratified to hear that, if they were listening. And we're approaching the water show now.
Oh, excellent. What can you see, Joan?
There is, readily mounted on a barge of apt conveyance, a beautiful and curious Argo, shaped after the old Grecian antique manner, not with masts and sails as prepared for rough and boisterous seas, but like to the Grecian Argos for carriage of passengers in time of calm and gentle weather, having banks for men to sit in and row with oars, and for more quick and agile passage on the seas.
Let me explain to your listeners. This Argo figureth that of so great fame and renown, wherein Prince Jason and his valiant Argonauts of Greece passed to Colchis to fetch from thence the Golden Fleece, which is the crest of the draper's armoury, and therefore the main motive of our employing the invention, alluding to that famous moral and ancient history.
I see.
We suppose this Argo to be returned from Colchis, purposely to honour this triumphal day by the rare art of Medea, the enchantress, that kept the fleece there so long a time, and wherewith she was now the more willing to part, in regard of her affection to the Drapers' Company, to whom she gave it freely, for an honour and ornament to their arms. And, to make the triumph the more full of majesty, she vouchsafed to come herself in person, attended with the fair Queen Irene, her daughter, and accompanied with the famous princes Jason, Hercules, Telamon, Orpheus, Castor, and Pollux.
And yes, I can see these figures on the barge, all armed with fair gilt armours and bearing triumphal lances, wreathed about with gilded laurel and curious shields, all carrying the impress of the Golden Fleece.
Excellent. Can you see anything else there, Joan?
Yes.
Oh, dear Joan. Is there some questionable early modern imagery going on?
Yes, John, there is. They're 6 tributary, quote-unquote, Indian kings, and by that we don't mean literally from India, more likely from the Indian Ocean, the Spice Islands, possibly even Africa, and they are holding their several dominions of Medea and living in vassalage to her. They are commanded by her to row the Argo, all of them wearing their tributary crowns and antically attired in rich habiliments.
Yes, that is a trifle awkward for our modern audience. Professor Tracey Hill, can you comment on what we're seeing personated here? Why should a livery company be presenting such images?
These figures represent the countries with which the city's merchants traded valuable commodities like nutmeg and pepper in its pre-colonial era. In this period, the Indies was a term used very loosely. People have very little understanding of the geography of that part of the world.
Oh, thank you, Professor Hill. Joan, have we passed the water triumph?
Yes, John, the service being performed upon the water, the like is to be done on the land, all the rest of the day following, always attending his honour's service, and for adding the more splendour to the triumph solemnity. We are now on our way to the service at Westminster Palace. Master Munday, any final thoughts on your show?
Whatsoever credit or commendation, if any at all, may attend on the artful performance of this poor device, it belongeth to the arts masters, Richard Simpson and Nicholas Southern, and freely I give it to them.
And with that surprising note of grace from Anthony Munday, back to you in the studio, John.
Thank you, Joan. Well, the boats have returned to the city, and the Lord Mayor, the Right Honourable Martin Lumley, has alighted at Paul's for Thomas Middleton's Pageants, titled The Triumphs of Integrity. Just a reminder that these noble solemnities performed through the city are at the sole cost and charges of the Honourable Fraternity of Drapers, at the confirmation and establishment of their most worthy brother, the Right Honourable Martin Lumley, in the high office of His Majesty's Lieutenant, Lord Mayor and Chancellor of the famous City of London. I have in the studio Thomas Middleton. Master Middleton, tell me why you wrote this.
Well, obviously to the honour of him to whom the noble fraternity of drapers, his worthy brothers, have consecrated their loves in costly triumphs, namely the Right Honourable Martin Lumley, Lord Mayor of this renowned city.
Yes.
Master Lumley, thy descent worthy, fortune's early grace, sprung of an ancient and most generous race, matched with a virtuous lady, justly may challenge the honour of so great a day. Faithfully devoted to the worthiness of you both, Thomas Middleton.
You think that the scale of the show is appropriate for a new Lord Mayor?
Of all solemnities by which the happy inauguration of a subject is celebrated, I find none that transcends the state and magnificence of that pomp prepared to receive His Majesty's great substitute into his honourable charge, the City of London, dignified by the title of the King's Chamber Royal, which, that it may now appear no less heightened with brotherly affection, cost, art, or invention than some other preceding triumphs, by which of late times the city's honour hath been more faithfully illustrated, this takes its fit occasion to present itself.
And first up, to specify the love of his noble fraternity after his lordship's return from Westminster, having received some service upon the water, the new Lord Mayor will be met by a proper and significant masterpiece of triumph called the
Imperial Canopy, being the ancient arms of the company, an invention neither old nor enforced.
Thank you. Yes, the same glorious and apt property of the imperial canopy is accompanied with 4 other triumphal pegma, and are in their convenient stages planted to honour his lordship's progress through the city. The first pageant for the land is being approached by the Lord Mayor now, and our hostess Joan is on the spot. Joan, you're at the first pageant site, aren't you?
Yes, John, I'm currently attending his most wished arrival in Paul's churchyard, where a pageant platform has been erected which bears the inscription of a Mount Royal, on which mount are placed certain kings and great commanders which ancient history produces that were originally sprung from shepherds and humble beginnings. There are 6 presented, some with crowns, some with gilt laurels, holding in their hands silver sheephooks. I can see Viriat, a prime commander of the Portugals, renowned amongst the historians.
Oh, especially the Romans.
Oh, especially the Romans, who in battles of 14 years' continuance purchased many great and honorable victories. I can also see a child performer presenting Arsaces, king of the Parthians, who ordained the first kingdom that ever was amongst them.
Yes, I believe in the reverence of this king's name and memory. All others, his successors, were called Arsacides after his name, as the Roman emperors took the name of Caesar for the love of great Caesar Augustus.
Yes, I can also see Marcus Julius Licinius, Bohemia's Primislaus, the Emperor Pertinax, the great Victor Tamburlaine, conqueror of Syria, Armenia, Babylon, Mesopotamia, Scythia, Albania, among many other countries. Many honorable worthies more could be produced, it says here, by their deserts ennobling their mean originals, but for the better expression of the purpose in hand, a speaker lends a voice to these following words written by our deviser, Thomas Middleton.
And silence descends as the speaker addresses the Lord Mayor.
They that with glory inflamed hearts desire to see great worth deservingly aspire, let 'em draw near and fix a serious eye on this triumphant mount of royalty. Here they shall find fair virtue and her name, from low obscure beginnings raised to fame. Like light struck out of darkness, the mean wombs no more eclipse brave merit than rich tombs make the soul happy. 'Tis the life and dying crowns both with honours sacred satisfying, and 'tis the noblest splendour upon earth for man to add a glory to his birth. All his life's race with honoured acts commixed, than to be nobly born and stand there fixed, as if 'twere competent virtue for whole life to be begot a lord. 'Tis virtuous strife that makes the complete Christian, not high place, as true submission is the state of grace. The path to bliss lies in the humblest field. Whoever rise to heaven that never kneeled, although the roof hath supernatural height, yet there's no flesh can thither go upright. And this is instanced only to commend the low condition whence these kings descend. I spare the Prince of Prophets in this file, and preserve him for a far holier style, who being king anointed, did not scorn to be a shepherd after. These were born shepherds, and rise to kings, took their ascending from the strong hand of virtue, never ending where she begins to raise, until she place her lovesick servants equal with her grace. And by this day's great honour it appears, She's much prevailed among the reverend years of these grave senators, chief of the rest. Her favour hath reflected most and best upon that son whom we of honour call, and mate successively reflect on all.
Thomas, would you like to comment on your thinking for this speech at the Mount Royal?
From this Mount Royal, beautified with the glory of deserving aspirers, descend we to the modern use of this ancient and honourable mystery, and there we shall find the whole livery of this most renowned and famous city, as upon this day and at all solemn meetings, furnished by it. It clothes the honourable senators in their highest and richest wearings, all courts of justice, magistrates, and judges of the land.
Righto. Professor Hill, any thoughts?
It's a very interesting speech. Middleton is articulating a sense of meritocracy that's very important to the city here. It suggests that what you do in your life is much, much more important than where you start out and your family prestige. Defending the kind of the people who make their own way in life, and also arguing that true morality lies within and not from how you're regarded by the world. It's almost like an existentialist point that the person that you become through your virtuous deeds is the most important person, not the person you were born, the person who titles you may have inherited or so on. So it's a kind of a defence of meritocracy which underpins the city structures. But also I think a more sort of far-reaching point there about that true worth lying within and being a reflection of the person you are and what you do rather than what other people think of you.
Thank you. Back to Joan. The Lord Mayor has presumably moved on to the next station along Cheapside.
Yes, John. By this time, his lordship and the worthy company being gracefully conducted toward the little conduit in Cheap. That's slightly further along Cheapside from St. Paul's. There, another part of the triumph waits his honour's happy approach, being a chariot artfully framed and properly garnished.
One must ensure all chariots are garnished properly.
Whatever you say, John. And on the conspicuous part of the chariot thereof is placed the register of all heroic acts and worthy men bearing the title of Sacred Memory.
I see. A list of names visible to the viewer underneath figures on this chariot.
Yes, John. This list of heroic acts, titled Sacred Memory, who for the greater fame of this honourable fraternity presents the never-dying names of many memorable and remarkable worthies of this ancient society, such as were the famous for state and government. I can see the name and figure of Sir Henry Fitz-Alwyn, Knight.
He held the seat of magistracy in this city 24 years together.
Ah, yes. And Sir Henry Fitz-Alwyn sits under the figure of the person of government. Then there is Sir John Norman, the first Lord Mayor, rode in barge to Westminster with silver oars at his own cost and charges. He is under the person of honour. I can see the name of valiant Sir Francis Drake, that rich ornament to memory who in 2 years and 10 months' space did cast a girdle about the world, under the person of Victory. Sir Simon Eyre, who at his own cost built Leaden Hall, a granary for the poor, under the figure of Charities, Sir Richard Champion and Sir John Milburn, under the person of Munificence or Bounty. Sir Richard Hardell and Sir John Pulteney both appear under the figures of Justice and Piety.
Yes, Sir Richard Hardell in the seat of magistracy 6 years, and Sir John Pulteney 4 years together. That Sir John being a college founder in the parish of St. Lawrence Pulteney by Candlewick Street.
This chariot is drawn by 2 pelleted lions, being the proper supporters of the company's arms, those 2 riders upon the lions, presenting power and honour. The one in a little streamer or banneret bearing the Lord Mayor's arms, the others those of the company.
I love to see 2 lions drawing a chariot. And now we go live to the little conduit on Cheapside for the speech on the chariot, and it's the personification of memory.
I am all memory, and methinks I see into the farthest time, act, quality, as clear as if 'twere now begun again, the natures, dispositions, and the men. I find to goodness they bent all their powers, which very name makes blushing times of ours. They heaped up virtues long before they were old. This age sits laughing upon heaps of gold. We by great buildings strive to raise our names, but they, more truly wise, built up their fames, erected fair examples, large and high patterns for us to build our honours by. For instance, only memory relates the noblest of all city magistrates, famous Fitz-Alwyn. Naming him alone, I sum up 24 Lord Mayors in one, for he, by free election and consent, filled all those years with virtuous government. Custom and time requiring now but one, how ought that year to be well dwelt upon, it should appear an abstract of that worth which former times in many years brought forth. Through all the life of man, this is the year which many wish and never can come near. Think and give thanks, to whom this year doth come the greatest subjects made in Christendom. This is the year for whom some long prepared, and others have their glorious fortune shared, but serious in thanksgiving. 'Tis a year to which all virtues, like the people here, should throng and cleave together, for the place is a fit match for the whole stock of grace. And as men gather wealth 'gainst the year comes, so should they gather goodness with their sums. For 'tis not shows, pomp, nor a house of state curiously decked that makes a magistrate. 'Tis his fair, noble soul, his wisdom, care, his upright justness to the oath he sware gives him complete. When such a man to me spreads his arms open, there my palace be. He's both an honour to the day so graced, and to his brotherhood's love that sees him placed. And in his fair deportment there revives the ancient fame of all his brothers' lives.
Well, wasn't that something? Professor Hill, 2 pelleted lions and a speech by memory.
Yes, well, if you can take your eyes off the pelleted lions, you can hear some very important messages there from Middleton about how memory reminds the Lord Mayor of how he should behave. There's some very sly commentary here on deficiencies of contemporary civic leaders. They heaped up virtues long before they were old. This age sits laughing upon heaps of gold, he says. So there's a message there for the Lord Mayor to not think about the role as a means to enrich himself, but rather as something to demonstrate his worth and morality.
Thank you, Professor Hill. And now back to Joan as we move further down Cheapside. Where are we now, Joan?
The full close of the forenoon's triumph, John, is near St. Lawrence Lane, much closer to Guildhall and the upcoming feast. And by St. Lawrence Lane, his lordship receives an entertainment from an unparalleled masterpiece of art called the Crystal Sanctuary.
Oh, well, that sounds exciting. A crystal sanctuary, you say?
Yes, John, styled by the name of the Temple of Integrity, where her immaculate self, with all her glorious and sanctimonious concomitants, sit transparently seen through the crystal.
Oh, wow, an actual crystal sanctuary.
Well, transparent at any rate, John, and my word, I must hand it to the invention and the art of the engineer for the motion, variety, and the content of the spectators. John, this crystal temple is made to open in many parts.
Really, Joan?
Yes, John, at fit and convenient times. And upon occasion of the speech we're about to hear, the crystal temple will open.
Oh, well, that will be quite the sight to see.
Oh, it's already a sight to see, John. The columns or pillars of this crystal sanctuary are gold, the battlements silver, glistening in the autumn sunlight.
And the Lord Mayor approaches the crystal sanctuary to hear this speech by Integrity.
Have you a mind, thick multitude, to see a virtue near concerns magistracy? Here on my temple throw your greedy eyes. See me, and learn to know me, then you're wise. Look and look through me. I no favour crave, nor keep I hid the goodness you should have. 'Tis all transparent what I think or do, and with one look your eye may pierce me through. There's no disguise or hypocritic veil used by adulterous beauty set to sale, spread o'er my actions, for respect or fear. Only a crystal which approves me clear. Would you desire my name? Integrity, one that is ever what she seems to be, so manifest, perspicuous, plain, and clear, you may e'en see my thoughts as they sit here. I think upon fair equity and truth, and there they sit, crowned with eternal youth. I fix my cogitations upon love, peace, meekness, and those thoughts come from above. The temple of an upright magistrate is my fair sanctuary, throne, and state, and as I dare detraction's evilest eye, sore at the sight of goodness, to espy into my ways and actions, which lie ope to every censure, armed with a strong hope, so of your part ought nothing to be done but what the envious eye might look upon. As thou art eminent, so must thy acts be all translucent, and leave worthy tracts for future times to find. Thy very breast transparent, like this place wherein I rest. Vain doubtings, all thy days have been so clear, never came nobler hope to fill a year.
At the close of this speech, the Crystal Temple of Integrity, with all her celestial concomitants and the other parts of the triumph, take leave of his lordship for that time and rest from service till the great feast be ended.
Yes, the Lord Mayor is off to the feast. Professor Hill, tell us what sort of feasting they're going to get on with.
Well, they were more than ready for it. Very, very early start to catch the tide down to Westminster. Long day of pageantry, speeches, pelleted lions and the like. So they went off to the Guildhall for what would have been an extremely lavish feast. The other livery companies who weren't directly involved would have had feasts in their own company halls at the same time.
And yes, and we're back for the closing of this year's Lord Mayor show. Since you left us, the Lord Mayor has feasted, and then after the feast, the whole body of triumph attended upon his honour, both towards St. Paul's and homeward, his lordship accompanied with the grave and honourable senators of the city, amongst whom the two worthy consuls, his lordship's grave assistants for the year, the worshipful and generous Master Ralph Freeman and Master Thomas Middleton, sheriffs and aldermen, ought not to pass of our respect unremembered, whose bounty and nobleness will prove best their own expresses. Can you tell us a little more about Middleton and Freeman, Professor Hill?
The sheriffs were, as Middleton tells us, the Lord Mayor's assistants, effectively. They were the second in command. Generally speaking, after a number of years, those who served as sheriffs ended up being Lord Mayor. And that's what happened to Freeman, who was the member of the Cloth Workers' Company who became Lord Mayor a decade later than this, in 1633. And our friend Thomas Hayward and his collaborators, the Pageant brothers, produced the pageantry for Freeman.
And now we really are coming towards the end of this epic live broadcast. Where are you now, Joan?
I'm near the entrance of Wood Street, that part of Triumph being planted to which the concluding speech hath chiefly reference, and the rest about the cross.
The entrance to Wood Street being opposite to the cross, so the triumphs are all clustered in one area, roughly halfway down Cheapside.
Yes, I thought it fit in this place to give this its full illustration, it being an invention both glorious and proper to the company, bearing the name of the thrice royal canopy of state, being the honoured arms of this fraternity, the 3 imperial crowns cast into the form and bigness of a triumphal pageant, with cloud and sunbeams, those beams, by ingenious art, made often to mount and spread like a golden and glorious canopy over the deified persons that are placed under it, which are 8 in number, figuring the 8 Beatitudes to improve with conceit.
Thank you, Thomas Middleton. Can you see all that, Joan?
Yes, John, I can see the 8 figures of the Beatitudes and a sign reading Beati Pacifici, being the king's word or motto, set in fair great letters near the uppermost of the 3 crowns.
And as in all great edifices or buildings, the King's Arms is especially remembered as an honour to the building and builder in the frontispiece. So is it comely and requisite in these matters of triumph, framed for the inauguration of his great substitute, the Lord Mayor of London, that some remembrance of honour should reflect upon his majesty, by whose peaceful government under heaven we enjoy the solemnity.
I think that in the printed text, Middleton decided to incorporate the pageant device, which was located originally near Wood Street, which, in terms of the topography of the city, is, as you say, between the 3rd and the 4th pageant devices. Because the subject matter is rather controversial. It touches on the failure of the Spanish match, the proposed marriage between Prince Charles and the Spanish Infanta, Charles's return from Spain to scenes of great rejoicing only a few weeks prior to the Lord Mayor's show itself. Quite possibly it was considered to be a little bit too controversial, perhaps, might have roused people to a state of, Protestant xenophobia. Who knows? But my reading of that, as you say, rather kind of oblique and elliptical passage is that it wasn't actually staged. But the jury is still out.
And now, as the day is drawing to a close, the speech having reference to this imperial canopy being the Draper's Arms.
The blessedness, peace, honour and renown this kingdom does enjoy under the crown, worn by that royal peacemaker, our king, so oft preserved from dangers menacing, making this arms, glorious in itself, outgo all that antiquity could ever show, and thy fraternity hath strived to peer in all their course worthy the arms they bear. Thrice have they crowned their goodness this one day, with love, with care, with cost, by which they may, by their deserts most justly these arms claim, got once by worth, now trebly held by fame. Shall I bring honour to a larger field, and show what royal business these arms yield? First, the 3 crowns affords a divine scope, set for the graces, charity, faith, and hope, which 3 the only safe combiners be of kingdoms, crowns, and every company. Likewise, with just propriety they may stand for those 3 kingdoms swayed by the meek hand of blessed James, England, Scotland, Ireland. The cloud that swells beneath them may imply some envious mist cast forth by heresy, will which through his happy reign and heavens blessed the sunbeams of the gospel strikes through still, more to assure it to succeeding men. We have the crown of Britain's hope again, illustrious Charles our prince, which all will say adds the chief joy and honour to this day, and as 3 crowns, 3 fruits of brotherhood, by which all love's worth may be understood. So threefold honour makes the royal suit in the king, prince, and the king's substitute. By th' 8 beatitudes ye understand the fullness of all blessings to this land, more chiefly to this city, whose safe peace good angels guard, and good men's prayers increase. May all succeeding honoured brothers be, with as much love brought home as thine brings thee.
And that concludes the primary pageants of the Lord Mayor's show for this year. The pageants will be left in place in this darkening evening, and I believe the pageant maker has made a few changes to the display for the nighttime conditions.
Ah, yes, John. The Crystal Temple in particular is quite wonderful. The whole fabric for the night triumph is adorned and beautified with many lights, dispersing their glorious radiances on all sides through the crystal.
Thank you, Joan. And now I'm back in the studio with Master Thomas Middleton. It seems to have gone well. How are you feeling about your show?
Well, it's a team effort, and for all my words, it's important to remember who made those displays happen, for all the proper adornments of art and workmanship in so short a time, so gracefully setting forth the body of so magnificent a triumph. The praise comes as a just due to the exquisite deservings of Master Garrett Christmas, whose faithful performances still take the upper hand of his promises.
Thank you, Thomas Middleton. And what a wonderful place to close this triumph for the new Lord Mayor on this St. Simon and Jude's Day, on Wednesday being the 29th day of October in the year of our Lord 1623. I've been your host, John, and on the street, mine hostess, Joan.
And may God preserve our dread sovereign lord King James, Charles the Prince, and all the rest of their royal issue, to which it's an amen from me, John.
And it's an amen from me, Joan. Amen. In the 1623 Lord Mayor's Show by Anthony Munday and Thomas Middleton, Robert Crighton was mine host, John, and Liza Graham was mine hostess, Joan. Iona Campbell was Anthony Munday and the Speech of Virtue and the Beatitude. Alexandra Kataigida was Thomas Middleton and the Speech of Memory and Integrity, with Professor Tracey Hill as our modern city chronologer. There are more recons of Lord Mayor's shows available on the podcast, as well as exploring sessions on YouTube. Links in the show description. If you've enjoyed this episode, why not buy us a coffee on Ko-fi.com, or become a patron and get early access and bonus material. Our patrons get to choose the plays we work on next. Go to patreon.com/Beyond Shakespeare. Links in the show description. Goodbye.